everyone, welcome to the first tag of the year. This is me playing along again with Tim Holtz's 12 tags of 2015. I've had lots of fun with this one. You can see there's a little new addition which I'll tell you more about later. So this is my January tag, a little bit late. I've already fallen down on my promise to myself that I would do these tags earlier in the month. But here I am and posting late. But I'm going to be early with February because that's already videoed and ready to edit. So this was Tim's tag for this month, which was lots of words, and I love the way that he displayed the year 2015. So I'm going to do something similar to his, but not the same. As you know, I like to see where his inspiration takes me. Quite often I haven't got the products, so I have to sort of improvise along with most of the other people that play along. And you can see here that I've decided, as well as making a tag, I'm going to make a 3-inch square based on the design that I come up with, and I'm hoping that throughout the months I'll end up with 12 little squares that I can mount and have a picture of the year's worth of creativity. So that's going to be a little extra in these videos. So starting out with a product that I have just treated myself to, and that's some of the Ideology tissue wrap, and this is quite a nice product to play with, and I intend to put some on some furniture, so I'll probably share some photos of that when I eventually get round to it. It really is a fun product to use once you can get into the box. I'm having a little bit of difficulty here, but that's nothing new. I always have difficulty getting into cling film and also into tin foil, and this is in the same kind of box which I've just about wrecked. I just wanted to point out, see these little pieces at the end of the box? Something I learnt on YouTube. Somebody posted it on Facebook, and that is they are there so that you push them in and push them into the box, and then they stop that annoying habit the roll of whatever it may be has of jumping out of the box. And all the years that I've been using tin foil and cling film, I didn't know that, so I'm sharing that just in case you didn't know it either. So just make sure the tube's in the right place before you push, otherwise you won't be able to push it through. And then it should, fingers crossed, as you lift the tissue tape out, you should be able to just pull it and it won't jump out of the box. So this tissue paper has obviously a lovely printed design all over it, but it's also got a slightly waxy feel. It's not exactly the same as normal tissue paper. It's a little bit more robust, so it makes it perfect for crafting on. I obviously don't need very much for my tag, so just working out how much and what part of the design I want on my tag, because I'm going to do a lot to the background. I'm going to keep those lovely butterflies for something else, probably the little square, because I think most of the design is going to be covered up on the tag anyway by the time I've added all the ink and paint. Almost a perfect tear. So I'm going to attach the tissue using some matte multi-medium, which is by Ranger. So I'm just spreading that liberally over my tag, and then I'm going to scrunch up the tissue. I want to create some crinkles and some texture, and as I put it onto my tag, I'm sort of pushing the tissue so that I get a few more wrinkles. I don't want it completely flat. I want some of those wrinkles to pick up the paint and ink as I apply it to make a lovely textured background. Then trimming off the excess, and I just checked around the edge of the tag to make sure everything was stuck down, and I've got a few little pieces, just adding a little bit more of that multi-medium and making sure that the tissue is well and truly stuck to my tag before I start applying paint and ink. So this year, whatever I do with my tag, I will be doing a version of it on my little sampler. So that's what I'm going to call these little squares, because that's what it will turn out like, a bit like a sampler once they're all displayed together in a frame. So like I said, I wanted to use these butterflies particularly on this little panel, so I know it's a little bit wasteful of the tissue, but I'm just positioning them, and I will stick it to my little 3-inch square. So from this point, I'll probably only show you the progress of the little square as we go along. I won't actually include it as part of the video, unless perhaps I do something a little bit different on these samplers throughout the year. I'm not going to follow Tim's technique for creating his background completely here, mainly because I didn't have the sprays just yet and colours and things like that. So I'm going with my own colour palette for this tag, and I'm going to be using greys and pinks, although one of the colours that I use is actually Victorian Velvet. So I'm using sponge sugar and I've got pumice stone. So I'll first of all lay down a little bit of the paint, which will kind of act as a resist as I add. This is Victorian Velvet Distress Stain, and really I'm not going to talk you through this because it's just a case of adding bits of ink and splatters of ink and rubbing the ink in and adding a bit more paint until I end up with a background that I like. I'm using all sorts of little tricks to just get texture onto this tag. So because I've created the little creases in the tissue, I'm just trying to get this distress stain to puddle or run along those creases so that you can see them a little bit more clearly. You can see I'm not really sure where I'm going with this, and it's all about playing, and that's the beauty of creating backgrounds with sort of inks and paints. Paints tend to resist the ink, so you can use them to create little textures. I'm using them around the edge of the tag and then just dotting, almost using the dabber of the distress paint as a sort of dry application, so I actually get the texture of the sponge on the tag, and then I'm coming back and darkening things up by rubbing the actually fairly light sponge sugar colour into the tissue paper. So it's all about experimenting and seeing where you think you want to add a little bit more colour or a little bit more texture, and employing as many different techniques as you know in order to do that. So I've done a little bit of dripping, I've dabbed on the paint, I've used my fingers, now I'm splattering little tiny dots of white distress paint, and I'm mixing the distress stain with the distress paint to give me that lovely pink colour that I've been using, because I don't have that colour in distress paint. So there's always lots of opportunities to mix and match your inks and sprays and whatever else you might have in your Tim Holtz range of inks and paints. So just using a little bit of the black, and I'm just about getting to the point now where I like what I have. So adding a little bit of the dark. It's always nice to have a slightly darker frame around the edge of your tag, and I'm always using my finger again, keeping the paint very, very light and catching all those little raised areas of the tissue. And obviously I'm going to repeat the whole thing on my little sampler piece. So I am going to have the date on my tag just exactly as Tim did, but obviously I'm going to be using the bits and pieces I've got at my disposal in order to achieve that. So I need the numbers 1 and 5. I've had a look through all sort of the chipboard letters and etc. that I've collected, but nothing is really suitable. But then I remembered this says from a project I haven't shared with you yet, but I used lots of numbers on it. It was an Advent project, and I'll probably share that with you later on in the year. So I'm going to use the offcuts. This is a sort of Tando sheet of small numbers that I used, and I'm going to use those offcuts to create my number 15. Now I really like these little wooden letters, can't even remember where I got them from now, but they're just a perfect size for a tag. The trouble is I've well and truly rummaged in these letters and used them on lots of other projects, so I'm finding it difficult to find the word 20. So I'm going to use my scissors and chip at some of the other letters to form the letters I've got missing. So I'm going to need to make a T and another T and a Y in order to get my word 20. So this is one of my top tips for all those letters that you might have purchased along the way. Sheets of letter stickers in particular, one of the best ways to use them up is actually to mix two fonts and styles that either completely contrast or look well together. It might be the colours or something that you can mix and match a couple of sheets of stickers so that you get the words that you want. But definitely it is a problem that you run out of the letters that you use the most. So rather than go and buy another set of these, if I could remember where, I definitely would. I'm just going to see if I can cobble together the word 20. I'm also checking which embellishments that I have in my little collection of Tim things, and I did treat myself to these stars and arrows, and I really do like those. I didn't realise actually how many sizes of stars there were, and they really do go down to quite teeny tiny, so I've just picked 2 little batches of 3. Not sure where they'll end up, but you can see the design starting to take shape. I've also got my little arrow in place. One thing I've noticed straight away as I'm rummaging through the bits and pieces that are in my stash, which is always a fun part of this project, thinking what I might add to a tag, what's going to fit. Because I'm working into sort of different sizes, I'm going to have to be careful with the embellishments that I choose, that I can sort of mimic the look on my tag as well as my 3-inch square. So I was looking at this gorgeous piece of velvet and lace ribbon, thinking about perhaps colouring some of the lace. I think it looks better on its own, but I just thought it was a little bit too chunky for my tag, so I do end up not using it. So something else when you're looking at bits and pieces to use on projects like this, don't be afraid to colour things to make them match your project. I know this grey already, this chipboard was already grey, but I am using the pumice stone because it goes exactly with my project. You can use distress paints on metal pieces and on card as I'm doing here, and I think distress paint takes a little longer to dry than acrylic because of some of the properties it has of being able to use or spritz it with water while it's wet to create sort of a marbled effect, but it does stick to metal, and once my little arrow is dry, I'm just going to take a bit of sandpaper to it to reveal the relief on the little metal feathers of the arrow. So I also I'm adding a little bit of black soot straight from the dauber to my chipboard pieces just to make sure they are framed and stand out on my tag. So back to the now dry metal piece, just brushing it over those raised edges. And you'll see throughout working on all these tag projects, I constantly keep going back to sort of my design. Should I move things around a bit? Where am I going to be able to fit the rest of the design in? And you will see that take shape as you watch any of my tag videos. I searched high and low for something I do have in my little collection, which is the sort of little chit-chat stickers that Tim used on his tag, but I couldn't find them anywhere. So I have made my own using my computer and a little bit of card that I've put through my printer, but this time I've decided that I can turn these into almost little resolutions. So this year I'll work harder to achieve my crafting dreams. And I'm just going to arrange them the way that Tim did to create a little patchwork of words on my tag. So I've got a few little things and we'll see if I manage to stick to them. Now I have to say that when I showed these 2 little finished objects to my husband, one of them said, "I'll tell my husband that I love him every day," which I promptly forgot about when I eventually showed him the finished article, and he said, "Well, go on then." And I said, "Go on then what?" So I've failed already in one of my resolutions, but I will try and tell him as often as I remember. So you can see I'm just making little word strips that I'm then just creating an interesting pattern with on my tag. So Mr. Holtz included some sewing on his sewing machine, and I'm using my little teeny tiny sewing machine to create a lovely stitched border. I'm going random because I can't really do much else with this little machine. I can keep a fairly straight line, but I'm going for that sort of higgledy-piggledy line that when I come past a second time to create a second row of stitching, I can sort of go in and out of the first line that I created to create a lovely wiggly border around the edge of my tag. And then obviously I'm going to repeat that around my little square. And because of the way this sewing machine works, I do have to spend a little bit of time just tying off those loose ends because it forms a kind of a chain when it stitches, and if you're not careful you can unravel the whole lot. So I'll do that off camera because it takes ages and it's very boring to watch. So now I'm going to take everything a little bit more girly, and you can see here that I've got some lovely white lace, but it's a little bit wide for some of the things that I want to do with it. So I have cut it down and trimmed it down, and I'm going to put it where I put my little stars, as well as putting a little bit along the bottom of my tag. So don't be afraid if you've got some lace. I'm snipping into it, and then I'm just making sure that it doesn't completely unravel by touching the edges with my PVA glue, and that PVA glue will dry clear as well as acting as a seal. Just working out where I'm going to put it in relation to the stars. I think I like it there, so I'm going to attach it to the tag. So adding the glue along the raw edge that I've cut, and then sticking the stars in place. I think I could see one of my words that I'll be looking for later stuck to the back of the tag. So again, I'm just sticking the lace so that the very ends of the lace, so I'm using like a lovely fine line of lace rather than the full width of the lace that you could actually thread a ribbon through if you wanted to. I did think that I might want to include some wire on my tag. I was thinking perhaps of highlighting some of the words with a sort of wire halo. And thinking about that, I've just added the wire to these little side panels for the number 15. I've coloured my little wooden pieces with my Victorian Velvet Distress Stain, and I'm starting to stick those into position. So you can see I have to fiddle about a bit here because they really are a tight fit across this tag now that I've got the arrow running up the side of them, and I probably should have been a bit more careful about the actual spacing on the letters. But here's another tip: sometimes if your letters are too fat, letters like the letter E or the T, I can trim the ends off so they're a little bit narrower. It's obviously impossible to do it with letters like N and W, but these ones I can definitely snip little pieces off the ends, so just to make them a little bit more narrow, and I only need a little bit of extra space to be able to fit that final T of 20 in on the left hand edge. So the beauty of using glue is you've got a little bit of work time before you have to completely commit. So Tim used some glitter on his tag, and I want to do the same on mine. So I'm just making sure there's no excess glue from where I've stuck down the cardboard letters. I've done away with those two little side strips because I didn't like them in the end, particularly covered in wire. And now I'm thinking that I want to add some glitter to these numbers. So here you can see me just adding some teeny tiny strips of patterned paper, again in that pink and grey, and I think the fact that these are light pink just lift things a little bit, and I can perhaps use them as fill-ins as you can see I've started to attach those little resolutions to my tag. As usual, I need a little reinforcer at the top, and that pattern paper will work very well for that. I'm going to add 3 little brads in position on the other side of the number, and I've got 2 pink and 1 grey brad. So I'm just using a matte pin to put a hole in the tag, and then opening out these lovely enamel brads. Perfect colour again to go with my colour scheme. So it's definitely becoming very two-tone, just the pinks and the greys. So I'm starting off by adding pumice stone glitter, and it was these two glitters that I've got in my collection of, I think I've got 5 pots, and I've got this pumice stone and I've got spun sugar, and it was those two colours really that inspired the colour scheme of this tag. So this glitter's lovely. It doesn't, whilst I'm knocking it off in the bin out of shot, it doesn't sparkle like normal glitter. It's a little bit duller, but it's got a lovely sugary sheen to it, which is perfect for this kind of work where you don't want anything too sparkly, and or something vintage, for instance. You want a little bit of sparkle but nothing too dazzling, and this is the perfect glitter for that. So I was thinking now whether the number 15 actually shows out very well, and I'm not too keen on the dark colour of those letters, and it's all about listening to what your eyes are telling you, and I quite like this colour, but you'll see I definitely go with the glitter in the end. So I'm using a charcoal pencil at the moment to run around the edges of each of my little word sections. One, to outline them, and two, because this is a charcoal pencil, it's very smudgy, and it just allows me to just run my finger across the top and just take some of that white look that these have at the moment. They're looking a little bit pristine for everything else that's going on the tag. So just by rubbing my finger over it lightly, it puts a little bit of charcoal over those little elements and brings them a little more into the design. So I'm repeating that process and outlining any paper pieces that I put on the tag. So a charcoal pencil is very much softer than a normal pencil, and like I said, it's got smudgeability, and I'm using that to my advantage in this case. So I keep thinking I'm going with just the plain painted pink. I think my problem is I can see, which you can't actually very well on camera, the joins of the letters that I've put together, and I think that was bothering me. So I'm quite happy in the end that I decided to go with the glitter to cover that up. And then it's just a case of making a little patchwork of the rest of my words, and then using the odd embellishment to fill in any gaps that I have left. So just trying to decide which ones to use and which ones to leave out. Walk the dog more. I think I might have just about done that so far this year. I've stuck all those little word strips down now that I'm happy with the layout. I've got a couple of little additions of that dotty paper, and then once the glue is dry, again I'm going over the top with, or around the edges with, that charcoal pencil. Then thinking about the framing, I quite like it on the grey, but I'm not sure. I think it's a little bit more dramatic on the black. So I think I'm going to go with the black because I already kind of know the colour scheme from my next tag. So you'll have to bear with me until you see it. But I'm going to outline this tag because I've got the black stitch in with a fine black frame. So I'm just sticking it into position, and then I'm going to trim it out. So because I've got a few sort of brads on the back of my tag, I'm pressing down well to make sure that I get a nice bond with the card underneath. Next I'm adding some tiny little pink sparkles, and I'm kind of just using those to fill in the natural gaps that have occurred in between the little strips of words that I've used. Starting to think about the little ribbon at the top of the tag, so I've used my crocodile to punch through all the layers of card, and I'm also just adding that charcoal around the edge of the paper strip. I'm thinking that the actual numbers at this point don't stand out very well. They seem to actually everything seems to stand out a little bit more on camera, but so I'm just coming in with some black paint. Now I think this stands out, but then I thought it's a little bit dark, so I changed my mind. Add a bit of white and think, what about grey? Still not liking it, but it's a bit better than the black. And because the lace is already quite pretty and I don't want to sort of detract from that by tying a bow, I'm just tying a simple knot of the lace in the top of the tag. This time I'm using the entire width of the lace. Whilst that paint's drying, I'm going to add Tim's original inspiration plus the date, obviously, which is January 2015, to the back of my tag, and that's for my own records. I like to see where I started with Tim's inspiration and where I end up, and I'm adding some glossy accents into those numbers, and I'm adding the pink glitter. Just tapping it off my bin, and I like that much more. And so I'm going to cover the letters with the same pink. Looking good enough to eat. I was just thinking then, is there a quote that says crafters are allowed to change their minds? Because if there isn't, they should be. I'm just adding a layer of glossy accents to each of my strips. So that's the paper strips and the word strips, because I just want to give them a little bit of dimension, make them look like epoxy stickers. And at that point I put everything to one side and get to work on this smaller section. So I had a gorgeous grey resin flower which I'm definitely going to use. I'm keeping the elements obviously, but not as many as I've used on my tag. So I'm keeping a couple of my phrases. There's that phrase, tell my husband I love him every day. And eat less chocolate. I think I've managed that one. So once I've faffed about with my tag, the creation of this little panel was much easier. So I'm all ready to stick down those little pieces that I've picked out, and you can see that it's starting to take shape quite quickly. One of the things that I've decided to include on all of the panels to make them have something very similar probably is the stitching, definitely the framing, and I'm going to use these little tiny letter stickers which are also by Tim Holtz, to add the month to each of my little panels. So as I was sitting admiring the view, well, actually I'm off hunting for something. I think this needs something dangling, and I'm thinking a charm, so I've just nipped out to get a little bit of pink ribbon and some little silver heart charms. I think these are Hobby House, and I'm just going to add them to the little panel and one to the tag. So I'm tying teeny tiny bows in the top of each of the charms, and I've attached one just dangling off the bottom corner of the square panel, and I'm going to add one just dangling off this bottom corner of the tag. Yeah, I think that's job done. You can see here on the detail that the colours are a little bit brighter than they look on camera when you take things out into the daylight. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. I definitely hope it inspires you to go along and play over at Tim Holtz's 12 Tags of 2015. I am a little bit late, but I'll be back very soon with my February tag. So before I give you my usual sign-off spiel, I just wanted to say a great big thank you to everyone that has subscribed to me, because I hit my 5,000 subscribers. I know it's not as big as some of these sort of viral videos, but it really does mean a lot to me that you have subscribed to me and that you like my videos. And it always makes me smile when I get all the lovely comments that I do on my videos. I have been in the past answering as many of them as I can, but I'm getting quite a lot now, and it is practically impossible to answer them all. So please don't think I'm ignoring you. I really do appreciate it, and you are spurring me on to make lots more videos. But if you have got a question, I definitely will answer you and do the best I can to help you with whatever it may be. So sending you all great big hugs and a great big thank you. And until next time, if you're new around here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the share button, the like button, and don't forget to stay tuned to the end of the video for the links where I point you in the direction of perhaps more projects that you might like to have a look at. Until next time, thank you for watching. So click here if you want to watch more tag videos, and this will take you back through all the tags that I made in 2014 as part of the 12 tags of 2014 challenge. Or you could click here for 2012. I've got a 2011. If I have, I'll put the link here as well. Can't remember, but I'm doing the voiceover before I can have a look. And here is all the scrapbooking videos that I've done. If you want to know how to make this page, then watch my scrapbooking playlist. Well, at least this video in the scrapbooking playlist. And if not, why not pop to my Etsy shop? If you are a tag maker like me, then the chances are you'll want to make one of these. This is my tag storage project, and there are lots of other workshops over there on my Etsy shop. If you purchase any of my online workshops, you get full video instructions as well as full photographic step-by-step instructions that you can print out if you want to. And I look forward to crafting along with you very soon.